Well, as a nation continues to descend in chaos, we welcome you to the program this morning as we try to analyze the events that occurred yesterday. And in dissecting that, we will also provide images of what transpired. But good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shaw, and I'm very pleased that you're able to join us this morning. If you're making your way into Port of Spain, you're probably not hearing this, but the traffic this morning to get into the capital was far greater than it usually has been. Adding to that, there is a large police presence from the beginning of Beetham, just towards the lighthouse here in the capital city. Now, as we have those discussions this morning and we get the latest, let me introduce my co-host and colleague. He's alongside me this morning, Mr. Sean Michael Small. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Keaton. Apparently, at least one potential source of the traffic coming into the capital this morning is because at the NP flyover there's a video online of a burning car on the flyover. I don't have any more details on that. I do believe that it's been cleared. You said you did not see it. This video is almost an hour old. So that could just be one factor. I will say this, coming out of Cascade St. Anne's, traffic was more or less almost non-existent, which is very strange for a Tuesday. It does make me wonder to what extent did the protests have on the everyday citizen and their decision with regards to what they were going to do today. And that is just potentially an indicator of the impact that protests like these could have, for better and for worse, which is something I think most people don't necessarily always appreciate. With the exception, of course, of where am I put out and being, where am I having to face difficulty?
Well, difficulties indeed, because yesterday it seems as though Port of Spain was held hostage, if we'd like to put it that way, simply because of protests held by residents of Beetham Gardens, Sea Lots, East Port of Spain, and Morvant. Now, interestingly, the story began at around 11 a.m. when residents in Beetham tried to block the eastbound lane of the highway. They spread 2 old mattresses and a couple of tires across the roadway, as well as debris. Now, they were throwing gasoline on it when a passing police vehicle actually saw them. And when the residents actually saw the police, they actually scampered and ran away. Now, the police actually cleared the debris and the traffic was allowed to continue. However, as it would be, that did not stop, because just hundreds of feet away in Sea Lots, later on, mattresses and tires were also burnt. They were successful in doing that. Police presence became very heavy on the scene, with police even in riot gear, and then the army were called out later on. It also transpired in East Port of Spain, as well as near the Lady Young in Morvant. So, Sean Michael Small, according to one individual, one resident of Sea Lots, his name is Elijah Mitchell, he said the inconvenience suffered by the rest of the country was simply the price of progress. And I quote, "The price of progress is high. The general public will have to pay the prices like how the people here are paying prices, because the people here are paying the price with their children and them." Now, these protests stem from the killing of 3 men on Saturday morning. Police received reports of a stolen vehicle from Coke. They tried to intercept the vehicle, but the vehicle crashed into Port of Spain. Independence Square in Port of Spain. It is understood, allegedly, that 3 men within the vehicle fired guns at the police at the Garden Emergency Branch. Police returned fire, killing 2 suspects at the scene. One was wounded in hospital, another died later on. There were 2 other men in the car who escaped unharmed.
Well, so first of all, inconvenience. We do have some more videos, particularly where we could see the smoke clouds. So if you could just play those while if we just have those there. But anyway, with regards to the inconvenience, this goes beyond inconvenience. First of all, I'm pretty sure the environmental damage, depending on how far it goes, this is somewhat bad, and I'm sure they have environmentalists pulling their hair out saying, no, this is horrible. This is somewhat bad. I myself am not entirely sure to what to what extent all of this black smoke from burning rubber tires, what harm it would do to the local ecosystems, right? Of course, that's just rubber tires. We don't know what else was necessarily burnt. As we could see here in the news, there stuff was burnt across the roads. There's also the fact that we are trying to recover economically. And this sort of thing, that's what I was alluding to. Is it that now a lot of people are wary to come into the capital, where their business is, where they are productive, so that our economy can get kick-started? Because what I think not a lot of people necessarily understand is, well, who is going to suffer if the economy slows down, if recovery is put off? Even for a day, these things add up. You know, if another small business happens to close down because of this, because of the disruption. Because we saw the first clip there that was shown, when the highway is basically blocked, right? Deliveries can't come through. Whether it's coming into the capital or, again, Port of Spain, nothing could leave Port of Spain, right? So, and coming into the studio, we're not necessarily right next door to Swim Call, where the mass of tires that you're seeing was burnt. But we could smell it in the air. I'm pretty sure everybody in Port of Spain could potentially smell it in the air.
Well, definitely, we understand that a tire depot, Swim Call at Sea Lots, was actually breached yesterday and set on fire. Now this morning, that fire is still going. There's still blooms of smoke emanating from that yard, and adding to that, you're still getting the smell in the air. The smell is very, very strong this morning. At least that's what we assume it to be, Sean and I, from when we exited our vehicles here in Woodbrook.
Now, he says progress. My question is this. To what extent did the protests and the burning of the tires progress anything? Now, I understand, I get it. You need to get attention. You can't just be one man on the side of the road holding up a sign, right? You're not necessarily going to get the attention of the authorities. So it's very difficult to get change that way. I get it. But the flip side is, you know, progress comes with a price if you do it this way. So according to the conflicting reports, either 6 to 8 men were arrested. That's the price for protesting this way. And listen, sometimes you do have to push the envelope and potentially face consequences like that in order to protest an important cause. My issue is, to what extent did the situation actually progress in any way?
All right, so let me just give my 2 cents on this entire situation. Let me get down to the meat of it. First of all, the residents are upset and angry over the police killings of these 3 men, 2 22 years of age and 1 17 years of age. I understand and I sympathize over the police killings. However, at the same time, I also understand that there is a process in which this needs to be investigated. And we saw the PCA over the last week, they released 2 reports into police killings, which is indicated that, well, they had advised the DPP that charges should be laid. So that is yet to be seen. There is a process and it will be carried out, and the PCA has stated that, as well as the acting commissioner of police. Adding to that, residents are refuting claims that the police were shot at. How do you know that? You guys are calling for police to release video evidence, and I agree. It will be beneficial and certainly in favor of the police if they were to release footage. And I say in favor to the police from the perspective that it is better in terms of transparency and clarity. But apart from that, y'all protested on the back that y'all refuted the claims, stating that these men were children and that they were good boys, they never did anything, which unfortunately has now become the line anytime there is a killing.
Hold on, it hasn't become the line. It was the line, I think, a decade ago or more, right? I remember basically, and it's become a meme. It's almost a joke now because they're always good boys and they are never involved in gangs and they don't deal with guns.
So no,
except there was a famous case where the mother refuted vehemently. He has done nothing wrong. He doesn't know anything guns. He has a social media photos of himself posing with multiple firearms.
And I'm just about to say,
not necessarily these 3 gentlemen.
No. And
Right.
that's where you have to put a pause, because there are photos now circulating on social media, and it is being reported by other news outlets, of these 3 individuals holding
Okay, well, there
weapons.
we go. There we go.
So why is it that the residents actually don't do something about the young ones within their society getting into that lifestyle? Why don't they address the fact that they were holding guns? So I am not saying that the police were right. I am saying that I sympathize with the residents, but there is a way to do this. And at the end of the day, disrupting all of Trinidad and Tobago, because to me, I feel your pain, and I hope the investigations are carried out soon, but it seems as though you all had nothing to do. Because the mere fact that they were actually blocking the road with mattresses and tires, throwing gasoline on it, and then setting it. But when they saw the police, they ran. They were cowards because they knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew it was wrong.
So progress. Look at the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement in the States did not involve a whole set of people marching down Main Street to the Capitol or wherever. And then as soon as the cops showed up, they ran, they hid. No. The type of leaders that actually fought for progress were front row, center stage. When the police showed up, first of all, they were non-violent, right? And then when police showed up, if there was any law that was broken, they would present themselves to be held accountable. They will face the day in court, in part because, hey, when the judge asks you why you did what you did, you have another opportunity to go on the record. This is why. This is the problem I have. This is what's going on. They have another opportunity to go on the record, both in the court, but also with the media. But they just ran. And that's why I ask, where is the progress? Because it's a hell of a thing. When I remember over a decade ago, a similar thing happened. They were good boys and the police shot them, and we refute the claims. Were you even there? How do you know to refute the claims? Who told you what happened? Where's your source of information? If you have a credible source, bring it forward. That's how you progress things. If you have a grievance and you want to make a change, say something with specifics. Don't just say, I have a problem, change it now, fix it now. That is something that we see generally in our political sphere, and nothing is done. You can't just say, well, the police, we protest against the police. How? What change do you want? How do you want it effected? Who are you protesting to? If you're just an angry person waving a flag in the air with no actual message behind it, you're not accomplishing anything. So as much as you say sympathize, I have a hard time sympathizing, because then it comes back to the fact that, hey, are you all just basically speaking without even knowing the gentleman you are defending? Because I don't know about you, but posing with firearms is, as a young man, I'm pretty sure a 17-year-old should not be able to afford to buy a gun. So what business does he have to be posing with a gun?
Apart from that, again, I need to stress, and so people do not misunderstand me, I firmly sympathize with the families of the victims, because they lost their lives. At the end of the day, though, you cannot defend those who may be deemed defenseless. And the reason why I'm stating that is because in these communities, whilst protests are fundamental rights, protesters should not attack innocent people. The protesters should not be hurling missiles in the forms of rocks, stones, glass bottles at the public and passing vehicles. That should not be the case. How do you justify that? So basically, you're arguing against police behavior and police brutality, whilst at the same time, your actions do not speak any different. Adding to this entire situation, why don't I see protest when one individual from the community may commit a crime? Why don't I never see that? Why is it that you're not defending them when the police arrest them then?
Because it's a stereotype. And every person out of these communities that commits a crime feeds into the stereotype and hurts that community. So it's not just about, it's a murderer or a robber robbing somebody else. No. He adds fuel to the fire of, I don't want to hire anybody from Beetham. I don't want to hire anybody from Sealots. I don't want to hire anybody from Mover. And that reputation continues to build. Why do protest that? I have sympathy for the victims' families, yes. Let me correct that. It's for the protesters, for the most part, I have a hard time having sympathy for, because this is a reoccurring decibel. We've seen this before.
But these protesters, far too long, have been treated too nicely. They've been treated like little kids. They've been treated like little children who are simply just being corrected by the TTPS. I was glad to hear that 8 individuals were held. I was expecting more. Because again, the mere fact that you run away when you see police approaching tells me you know what you are doing. The mere fact that you can make the comment that you're inconveniencing the nation tells me you know damn well what you are doing. And this is the issue that I have. And by the way, this was not a protest. This was lawlessness. This was a riot of the highest degree in terms of the utter disturbances within society, that people are just having any excuse to now go out, pelt missiles, burn tires and whatnot. Let the investigation happen. Because at the end of the day, there are going to be police killings in future. And whilst there needs to be more transparency, whilst there needs to be body camera footage released to the public, at this point in time, we do not have that staffed and equipped. So let us hope that the PCA comes out with a report soon. But for now, I'm sorry, I don't condone this nonsense.
So here's the flip side, right? What do we see in North America? They protested the police, and then they went to defund the police. And now they have a crime wave in areas where they defunded the police. Now, let's not necessarily debate the whole police and crime situation in America. We don't have the same issues that they have there. But imagine we're in a crime wave, you're protesting police shootings. Think about where it goes if you just give in to the whims of people who don't actually have an argument, who aren't actually calling for any specific change. They just want to end the police killings. Well, first of all, we have to assume that the men were innocent for the argument to even be valid. And if the men aren't innocent, how are the police supposed to stop shooting at people who are committing violent acts of crime? Now, in the next segment, maybe there could be some debate for the police use of force policy. Maybe that's something that should be looked at. But call out that. Don't just say, well, they were good boys. We've seen that before. And I honestly don't know of any case where they actually were good boys. That's as sad as it is to say. I do not know. And maybe there is. There probably is at least one. But I do not know of any case where they actually were good boys who were not involved in anything.
This family is hurt. One of the boys' grandmothers, Michelle John, said she warned the boys repeatedly about the dangers of the outside world and did her best to protect them. And I sympathize with that. But at the same time, at any instance in warning them about the dangers of the outside world, did you also teach them and warn them about the dangers of their potential actions? And that is key. She said that they called her anytime they reached a destination. They didn't call her that Sunday. She grew suspicious. She says, I protect my children. They are baptized, all of them. And it is not to say they do wrong. They are good boys. Why did they have to take these young men's lives like that, treating them like dogs and criminals? They are not criminals. They were young people who know about God. You see, the thing about it is that, again, family pain. You're speaking about they were good boys, they knew about God and all that. But at the same time, I get this feeling, because I am not labeling anybody as a criminal, and I am in no position to be a judge and jury.
Right, fair enough.
Right? I am simply stating that this sounds all too familiar to me. This blanketed picture of men knowing God, being good boys, sounds all too familiar to me. And at the end of it all, I only hope a police investigation is carried out. Because if there's photos of these individuals circulating on social media holding weapons, that is very, very suspicious. Anybody could take a picture holding a gun. But in what direction does it point?
Think about it. How many pictures have you taken holding a gun?
None.
How many pictures do you know of your friends that they have taken holding a gun?
None.
I have friends who have family who are criminals. They don't have pictures holding a gun. You understand? So let's just remember, everybody who knows Jesus is a sinner. Right? So knowing God is nothing unique. It does not mean you're good. It does not mean you're God. It's just bad. It just means you know God. But let's just remember that we already had, think about it, we already had multiple situations where police officers are under investigation. Are we really going to say that there's some big conspiracy theory now that the police are going to keep things under wraps? Anyway, we have a little bit more on that later on. But just note, what was tried to be kept in the darkness came to light. So if there's anything hidden here, I'm a bit confident that it could be found out, right? To what extent it will be prosecuted, and to the full extent it will, how fast it will go, those are all different questions, right? It took 2 years to potentially see the 2 years, it was 2018 or 2020?
2020.
2020, 2 years for that case where ironically 3 gentlemen also lost their lives. But let's not just be quick to assume that the police are completely in the wrong.
But very quickly, I am pleading this morning with families in Sea Lots, in Beetham Gardens, in East Port of Spain, all those who took part in those protests yesterday, and generally to all families across Trinidad and Tobago. It is time that you stop protecting your loved ones if they are involved in criminal activity. Because by protecting them, you're not stopping them. In fact, you're allowing it to continue. And when they do harm to others, how would you feel then? If you know that a relative or a loved one is involved in a life of crime or involved in criminal activity, then you are just a culprit. You are a culprit to the crimes because you are actually aiding and abetting, in my opinion. Right? The legal terms, the legal arguments, the legal definitions, I'm using from the philosophical perspective this morning. I'm telling you, stop protecting these youths. If you want Trinidad and Tobago to progress, and if you want the nation to be a better place, then simply this morning, you could make a change. You could do different. You could be the catalyst of justice if we just stop hiding behind the walls of God and everybody being innocent and a good boy.
The results are very simple. We keep doing things this way. 10 years from now, there'll be another situation like this. Because as I said, I remember a situation 10 years ago. So it is what it is. But let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to actually get to the other side of the equation. Now with the TTPS itself, there's some unfortunate questions going on, I think, while we are in the middle of a crime surge. Stay tuned, Talking Point. WASN, Sean Michael Small, Keaton Shaw. We'll be right back.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that I need to give me more smiles and motivation to lead, to make new memories and nutrition to grow. My Kiss Enriched brand, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we deliver the best for you. All across the nation, to make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love, we bake the best right for you. Inspiration to make those dreams come true.
Baked fresh for you every day and delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law. and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
I'm here with Andrew Lewis, sailor. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
The most beautiful thing about sailing, in my opinion, is it's where it was, originated from. It was a form of transport that was allowing people to connect different parts of the planet. And sailing today has become many different ways of life, but I have chosen the pathway of the Olympic Games.
For women to feel confident, we have to feel sexy. That doesn't mean outward appearance. It could be a mental state, it could be a physical state, it could be an emotional state. And if you choose to be liberal, and if you choose to be conservative, that is up to you. I just give you the space to choose whatever you want to do.
What's up, Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out. Not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Points. So, as promised, we're going to go to the other side of the equation. That, of course, is the TTPS itself, as well as the Ministry of National Security, because the minister, accompanied by Acting Commissioner McDonald Jacob, as well as a couple of other senior Defense Force officials, or national security officials, they had a press conference late yesterday, to address the matter of the protests and the ongoing elevated crime levels. It was something of a mixed bag with regards to messaging, because arguably some of the minister's comments might have not necessarily been in line with TTPS messaging for the last couple of weeks. But I think what was quite interesting was the minister called the press conference, but it was the acting commissioner that more or less he did the bulk of the talking, particularly in the body of the press conference. So let's get our first clip here where we have some highlights of some of the various points that Acting Commissioner of Police McDonald Jacob touched on.
Is there any body cam footage any sort of footage at all that backs up what the police are saying about this incident on Saturday morning at 3:20 a.m.? Is there anything at all?
Well, I will answer like this. There is, in fact, footage that was captured by our main operational center and is now there, which is evidenced for the investigator.
Is there any plans to release that footage into the public domain?
Well, as I said, the matter is actively under investigation. So at some stage, consideration will be given. But in the early stage of the investigation, it is necessary that the investigators, right, deal with it in a professional manner.
Commissioner, again, you would have stated, I believe it was earlier today, that or suggested that these persons might have been riled up to carry out the action that they might have.
Well, I cannot say. All we have is some information of persons who give, who encourage, who incite, right, and organized.
Public trust in the police. Last week alone, we had 2 reports coming out of the PCA that seems to, well, it doesn't even seem it. The PCA definitely said that officers misled you, and there was an attempt to cover up the incident with PC Gilks. And then we also had the one coming out of last year's incident of what we saw today, where Miss Greaves was killed by police. So is it of the National Security Ministry and even within the police that the longer that this charges or anything take to be placed against the officers that might have been involved, that it could further fuel mistrust in the establishment?
The PCA, in their initial investigation, they came to some measure of conclusion that they believe it could, right? But that is in the early stages. That matter is still under investigation. Whatever the PCA have, they will pass it on to the police and the DPP. I cannot come to any conclusion here until the investigation is completed by the police and they are guided and advised by the DPP.
So that was generally the commissioner there with some various answers to questions that reporters had. Most of the press conference were reporters asking questions, so he was doing his best. One thing that I found interesting is that in most cases, details were not necessarily very forthcoming, and we have another example we'll show in just a minute. But first, we're joined by our usual Tuesday contributor, Mr. Kemuel Pascal, and Kemuel was one of the social media photojournalists, so to speak, and captured some of the images that we showed earlier. Kemuel, we were going about it with regards to the protests and how they're doing it to try to make progress, as they say, is not necessarily the best way. And just look at the results. This is not the first time we've seen this, and we've seen this for years without actually making any bit of a change. The TTPS is saying, be patient, we have footage. Trust is they're a bit on thin ice when it comes to trust right now. Do you think that all is well with regards to how they are handling the situation?
Sure. Good morning, guys. Good morning to all of viewers and listeners. It's my pleasure to be here yet another Tuesday. With regards to the protest action that was undertaken by the residents of Beetham and Sealot yesterday, at this point, when we look at from a TTPS level, I think in terms of their handling of it, that it leaves a lot to be wanting. But of course, the police is currently seen in a kind of light that isn't necessarily good, that gives a good perception to the public, because a lot of people are questioning the incident that took place over the weekend involving the killing of these two teenagers and one adult male. And then there was also another police killing in East Trinidad that a lot of people haven't really given attention to. So it's just a matter right now of how they are being seen in light of from the population's perspective, and them really doing some amount of public relations, especially the commissioner coming out to host a press conference along with the Minister of National Security, in terms of getting their image to a better place at this point.
Now, Camille, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us once more. Good to see you. And also, thank you very much yesterday for your correspondence. I know that you were just not too far from the protest and you were assisting WSN as well, so thank you for that. But with respect to this conversation, I agree with you in relation to the handling of the matter by the TTPS. Leaves a lot to be thankful for, put it that way, because what was mentioned yesterday by the Acting Commissioner of Police, McDonald Jacob, in relation to the fact that there is a video footage and they have that within their realm. At the same time, it will be utilized in any investigation. I think this is something that needed to be said earlier. I know that the police incident took place at 3 o'clock on Saturday morning, but you had over 48 hours before stating this. It's unbelievable to me that you would make this statement at a press conference held right after the protests were quelled. And the protest took place at 11 o'clock. So you're telling me that between 11 and 5, you were then informed or found out that there was indeed video footage evidence. This is something that you should have stated sooner. It would have helped the situation. And it goes back to what we said on this program innumerable times before. Yes, we're grateful that the Acting Commissioner came out and spoke. Yes, we're grateful to finally hear from the Minister of National Security. It's good to know that he can make time for us still and he remembers that citizens are still here. It's good to know that he's still able and willing to speak to the public. But at the same time, it said very little. All what was said, at least on the part of the Acting Commissioner of Police, should have been stated before. A serious communication shortfall.
Camille?
Yeah, that's it. Because they would have obviously heard the outcry from the public even after the incident took place, because it took place early on Saturday morning, and then they would have heard the outcry from the residents on Saturday during the day, and also on Sunday, and also part of Monday morning. And they should have been more proactive in terms of assessing the situation and seeing, well, there's the potential for protest action. Because this is not the first time that I'm not going to label it, I'm not going to say persons of the Beatum and Sealots. It's not the first time people are protesting the killing of persons at the hands of police officers, so they should have been proactive. So no, here's what we probably need to get on top of this. Probably need to pool or channel our resources in these particular areas so as to avoid what we saw yesterday, because it continues to be a situation where we only have essentially 2 arteries into the capital city. If you're coming from South and Central and East Trinidad, you can either pass Lady Young over the highway or the Eastern Main Road. And if you're coming from West Trinidad, there's essentially one road or a couple of roads that can lead you into Port of Spain, and continues to be that productivity and business and everything has to come to screeching halts whenever we have incidences like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I made the point. We're at a very tenuous situation economically speaking, and who is going to suffer the most? Even if we disrupt our economic recovery for a day, even if we just put a little bit more risk on small businesses closing down, a vendor in Port of Spain now all of a sudden he's not getting the foot traffic that he's accustomed to or she's accustomed to, that hurts into their ability to sell their stock spoils, their business model potentially could collapse. It's the little people who will suffer the most, right?
Correct.
But I think also with regards to the protest actions, one of the things that the TTPS, the commissioner referenced the fact that the efforts of one of the officers present, I can't remember the other officer on the panel, forestalled similar sorts of actions before Monday, meaning that they were aware of it potentially happening or that it was going to happen. Then they also said that they threw out the tidbit that maybe it was incited, which I think is somewhat interesting. There's a bit more into that. I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. But I want to move on, though, because of time. Sorry. It might seem that I'm jumping from one to the next. The use of force policy by the TTPS, I think that's the thing to me that needs to be questioned. It might not need to be fixed. Maybe there's something fixed there, but we should question it. The acting commissioner was asked a question by one of the reporters at the press conference. In the second clip, let's hear what he had to say.
The police use of force policy, yes, we are reviewing it, and we are actually updating it to assist our officers so that they will have that high level of confidence when they are dealing with things out there. And there are training and retraining taking place, as we go forward. So it is totally necessary that we deal with the use of force in a particular way. One of the issues that we are having, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service have now introduced a new patrol initiative where we do patrols through patrol grids and we form cordons. So when things happen, our time in responding has improved tremendously. And the fallout of that, in some instances, you will have more interaction with persons who are offenders who may decide to be involved in illicit and criminal activities.
So the acting commissioner, he explains, yes, we might have more confrontation with violent criminals. But notice he didn't go into much details with regards to use of force, with regards to, okay, what is the policy? Is it working correctly? Did the police officers use the appropriate amount of force, or did they overstep? And as much as I said the last time where we had police shooting a man on Ryson Road, if you don't want to be shot by the police, don't enter into a gunfight. And I still say that is true. If you don't want a confrontation, a violent confrontation, don't start it. That doesn't mean that we still don't now question, hey, was appropriate force utilized here?
Kemuel, just before we come to you, I feel it very necessary to point out you're right. Up to this point, the TTPS has not actually indicated what is their use of force policy. They haven't given us details on that. And when we were joined by acting ASP Ashraf Ali, I think 2 weeks ago, when we were speaking about what transpired around the Queen's Park Savannah, he indicated as well that it is constantly under review, especially in instances when complaints are made against police violence. It's constantly under review. So no details in relation to that. But I just want to quickly point out, not to cut the conversation, but again, why is it that we heard more from the acting commissioner of police yesterday than the Minister of National Security? I think it's fine from the fact that, it's good to hear from our leaders, but this was a press conference called by the Minister of National Security. And again, it speaks a lot. I'll get into that a bit later on, but Kemuel, coming to you now.
Sure. So in terms of the use of force policy, we've always heard, especially over the last few years, with the coming in of Commissioner Griffith and the amounts of police killings, which would have escalated during the period of time he was in office, so that there is a use of force policy. And you always hear when situations like this come about that they are reviewing it, or as we were discussing just 2 weeks ago, as you mentioned, they have a policy which they are reviewing. But it's really and truly for us to, as the public, to also be able to assess this policy, because maybe the public can have a say in it, even though we may not be law enforcement specialists. Essentially, it's the police versus the public when you think about it. But in terms of the press conference yesterday, I think what we really and truly saw was just a matter of them calling a press conference, the minister calling a press conference just for having a press conference sake. Really and truly, it gave no sort of confidence or assurance to the population or to the people of Vitamin C that the issues that they would have protested for yesterday would be resolved. And also, you can also look at the fact that they only mentioned the fact that they went to visit the families of the young men who were killed over the weekend after the protest had already taken place. They didn't see it necessary to do that during over the weekend when it took place. So it's a matter of...
we have one more clip, and since we've come to this point, I do think it's pertinent. We have one more clip where the press conference was actually bookended. The minister opened the press conference and he ended the press conference. And how he ended the press conference is a very interesting micro case study in communication. So the final clip we have of Minister Hines as he closes the press conference, if you could just hear that quick.
When you look at, because some of them were mass shootings, 4 getting shot in one bunch, in one go up in Santa Cruz, 3 in Independence Square. So it's quite a lot. There's several mass shootings apart, and then 2. So any comments if that number is right?
Yeah. I think I can say as a member of parliament and citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course as Minister of National Security, that what you have just described is a function of the high and increasing levels of violence that subsists in this little and beautiful society. It is quite clear from the evidence you have just advanced that this place is becoming increasingly violent. It also is a function of the extent and the ease to which people have access to lethal barreled weapons, deadly weapons called guns, firearms. And both those issues are of some concern to us as a government and to all of us as citizens of the Republic. In the first instance, the government continues to provide opportunities for the people of Trinidad and Tobago as best as she can for many, many decades, in fact, since our independence. We focus particularly on the young people who are the future.
And the minister, that's the first point. He continued to speak on the first point for the rest of the press conference, 14 minutes long. The rest of the press conference there, the minister was speaking on. He never got to the second point. He spoke so long on the first point that he forgot. He went into a whole host of government social programs with regards to prison, criminal reformation and restitution and education and all sorts of things. 14 minutes long this answer was. Closed the press conference, didn't actually get to even his second point. I just think it's interesting with regards to communication. And if you're going to drown out and literally just repeat yourself for 40 minutes, the rambling, how confident are we going to be? And we know that he rambles, but I just thought this was a whole new level of literally rambling on one singular point for 14 minutes straight.
Well, first of all, you all are right in stating that he held a press conference for just the sake of holding a press conference, because the other flip side of it is that if he didn't hold a press conference, the nation will be up in arms this morning stating we haven't heard from the Minister of National Security.
I mean, we found out they have footage, and so, I think that's about it. But, and maybe somebody incited the protest. 2 points out of 50 minutes.
All right, let me finish. Adding to that, Minister of National Security Fitzgerald Hines, if nobody told you this before, you are a complete waste of time. I mean that with absolute respect. I don't know how I could say that with even more respect. Because, quite frankly, you coming and stating that again, it seems to me as though the campaign never ends for you. The campaign has ended a long time ago. Sit down and do your job. You can't come and tell me all these social programs and government programs are what you're doing for solutions. You all are concerned. You all have recognized that society is becoming more violent. What you doing about it? Because calling these social programs that you said have been there since God knows how long, have they bared any fruit if you as Minister of National Security could actually come and tell me that society is becoming more violent? No, they haven't worked. So clearly you are failing. Clearly you don't know how to do any better. Let me calm myself down and give my good friend Camille the opportunity to speak.
Sure. Not only that, what I would say is that yesterday's press conference offered no hope or no reassurance to the people, and I said it before. It also saw the Minister of National Security further continue this point that he would have made a while back, as in terms of saying, well, it's the police job and law enforcement job to carry out crime. It's not necessarily my job as Minister of National Security. And he has always maintained this hands-off approach, this kind of approach. Well, I am just the person that brings the policy to Parliament, you all are the ones that have to go out and do the work. And yes, while that is true, and that is in fact so, you are still the Minister of National, you are still the public figure in all truth and honesty. And it is your responsibility to give the population a sense of hope, a sense of some amount of reassurance. And I listened to Martin George, head of the Tobago Chamber yesterday, speaking on another network, and he said, really and truly, we are at a point where we are getting nothing from our ministers, we are getting nothing from our government. And he is in fact right, and I do share that view because we saw a press conference from the Prime Minister on Saturday. We got nothing, no type of reassurance after he was missing for so many weeks. Then we came and we saw a press conference from the Minister of National Security, chaired by the Minister of National Security yesterday, and we got nothing from it. What did that press conference really give to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? Well, if somebody can answer me that this morning, then I would be happy. But it gave us nothing.
To also add to that, again, it solidifies my opinion that Fitzgerald Hines is simply there to fill a position, to fill a void. He's there to wear a suit and to speak to us at press conferences and probably to attend meetings for whatever reason or the other. Because if Fitzgerald Hines is the standard, the highest standard of the best individual to lead national security here in Trinidad and Tobago, then clearly we don't want to do anything to solve crime. We don't want to do anything to better the situation. I remember a couple of years ago when the Prime Minister was asked, name one thing that the government has done in Parliament. In Parliament, he was asked by the opposition, name one thing the government has done to help the crime situation. He got up and his response was, Madam Speaker, the government has ensured that all active police officers have been on the payroll and have been paid on time. That was his response. So my question, if your job as Minister of National Security is not to make the people feel safe, fine, your job is about policy. Name me one policy or one new measure that you have implemented since you've seen society becoming more and more violent.
Not only does he not see it that his job to make us feel safe, the commissioner was trying to put out a message that, okay, yes, we're seeing bad crime, but it's not a crisis. You know, statistically, we're not like seeing some huge surge or wave or spike or whatever. That's my interpretation of his messaging.
I don't agree with that at all, because a couple of weeks ago we saw a similar situation with a certain amount of murders over a period of time, and then we saw the same thing over the past weekend. We saw both police killings, and we also saw some 14 or either 15 murders in one weekend, and that is totally unacceptable.
Well, the thing is, ironically, of course, the Minister of National Security also doesn't agree with it. So now I do have to ask, at the very least, can you all be on the same page? Can you all compare notes before you all speak to the public? Could you all have a strategy of communication? I know that there are different posts, but they came to the press conference together, and Minister Hines let Acting Commissioner Jacob speak for, I don't know, maybe 25 to 30 minutes, more or less straight almost, answering the questions. The other two gentlemen, the reason why I cannot remember their names, I apologize, is because I do not believe they spoke more or less at all, maybe just in the background. So I don't know why they were there. We've seen press conferences like that before. We need to present a panel, but half the panel doesn't speak. So the whole, again, okay, there was footage. We don't even know what the footage is about, or if it's even pertinent, or how pertinent it is. And well, somebody might have been inciting the protest. But at the end of the day, that's obvious. That's like saying, well, clouds came before rain. Of course, somebody's going to organize protests. To some extent, you do want protests to have some sort of structure, not just get out of hand with chaos. So, to those 2 points,
I am just going to conclude by simply saying to the Minister of National Security, yes, I spoke very hard this morning with respect to the residents, and I also sympathize with them. And I spoke very hard on you this morning. So let me sympathize with you a little bit. You're in a very difficult position. And again, thank you for actually making time to come speak to us. It's very nice to hear from you and knowing that you're still there. I actually forgot. I thought that you... Anyway, whatever. Let me not waste my time on that. Very simply enough, you're not there for your charming looks. In fact, none of us here are in this position for our charming looks. You're there because obviously the Prime Minister sees something in you. Regardless of whether or not my opinion is that you're filling a void, obviously he sees something in you. And I've heard time and time again that you are a very smart individual and you're a very nice person. At the end of the day, use your brain power and do your job. In fact, right now, you're just doing the basic, you're just doing the minimum. Actually go to work and do your job. And tomorrow morning, don't wait for tomorrow morning. The day already started. It's a brand new day. Get up and actually get some work done, and let the people of Trinidad and Tobago feel better, feel safer, feel more inspired, feel more confident. Because you're not fooling anybody. Anyway.
Just quick, education. We've seen the essay results. Economic recovery. Those pressures are going to get worse before they get better. the crime situation is going to continue. So now we have to worry about what's next.
The only person I didn't hear from yesterday was the Minister of Works and Transport, Rohan Sinanan, saying that the fires on the road were going to create more potholes. He was the only one I was after. Anyway, we break for news on the hour.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy. There will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. only on your Content Capital, WESN.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. Listen, this morning we spoke this entire program this morning, this edition of the program was based solely on yesterday's protest. I still don't think it was for protest. I think it was just upheaval of law and order and people just doing whatever they want, hurling missiles towards cars and innocent people. Folks, we also spoke about the Minister of National Security and the Commissioner of Police. We're all here this morning. We do not have a specific question of the day because we are open to hearing your thoughts and opinions as to what transpired yesterday, as well as from the Minister of National Security and Acting Commissioner of Police. So please, the numbers on your screen, call in and join us on the program this morning. We'd like to hear your opinions. The public opinions, it adds to the conversation and we get a better understanding. And apart from that in itself, that conversation is progress. Right? The price of progress this is the price of progress according to one person. No. Price of progress is this conversation so that policies can be formulated and implemented. By the way, that's some advice to Minister of National Security if you weren't listening. Please be respectful of the time and please be respectful of other callers and their opinions. Respectful on a whole. Be careful of the language that you use.
Please be respectful, yes. Be careful of the language because there are certain things we just cannot tolerate here. And we have tried to cut it out before. We will not hesitate to cut it out again because at the end of the day, it's not beneficial. It's only hurtful.
Now, I'd like to touch on a bit of a sensitive topic. And that is a lot of commentary that I'm seeing and a lot of commentary that we've heard in relation to this. Unfortunately, it has gone on the road of racism again.
Yeah.
It has gone on the road of racism again. And this is, I'm tired in sitting in this position and having to respond to that level of racism. It's not going to solve anything. It makes things worse. And the situation continues. You can't solve a situation of hate and anger by speaking more hate and anger. And why is we as a nation in this day and age having to actually throw ourselves so low? I'm tired. Sean, if you see some of these comments.
I think I have to ask, if you actually think that to be true, that it's a racial thing, what sort of solutions comes out of that thinking? You know, are you ready to just condemn? Because you're condemning a whole race of individuals because of the actions of a few people who then trigger the reactions of a community that then triggers and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, what is the actual solution you're advocating here? On a practical level, what are you really saying? And I think a lot of these people don't necessarily understand what it is, the implications of what they say. The implications of when you decide, oh, well, it's this race's fault for X. And you put that brand rhetorically on them. And we've seen the extremes of that. I don't necessarily want to bring it up because some people might misconstrue the example. But we've seen how far the extremes could go, and it's not pretty. So it's just irresponsible to go that way, because at the end of the day, you can't tell me, oh, well, yeah, it's just race X fault or race Y fault for this or for that. Because the stereotypes go both ways. You know, in this situation, it might seem to be going one way, but there are other situations where they have stereotypes for whichever race in the country you could think of. Not just the majority ones, also the minority ones.
Camille, I'm going to come to you for your comment very soon, but we have a caller on the line with us from Siparia. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to the panel.
Good morning.
Yes. Now, in respect of the upheaval that took place on the Beetham Highway yesterday, these government officials, when they have to respond to these matters, why do they discriminate when incidents of these happen in areas? Keaton and Sean, if you throw your mind back a few months ago, when the people of Barrackpore had a similar protest, and they were burning tires in the road, and they made the road impassable to motorists and other users of the road. The Minister of Works, Rohan Sinanan, overnight, in a matter of minutes, he said that the damage that the people of Barrackpore who were protesting, he gave a value to the damage that the people of Barrackpore did to the roads. He gave a figure of $375,000 in damage to the roads at Barrackpore. And he also made another comment. He said the people of Barrackpore were very unpatriotic. His words, the words of Rohan Sinanan, not my words. Now, where is Rohan Sinanan in this incident that took place yesterday? What sort of monetary damage did the people do to the roads? Were the people of Beetham and Silas unpatriotic? And when the traffic grinds to a halt and people cannot go into Port of Spain to transact their business, the country loses millions of dollars. All I simply want to know, Keaton and Sean, in closing, I want you to ask the public, I want you to ask the minister, get in touch with him, call him on his phone, where is he in this incident? That the people of Beetham unpatriotic, as he described the people of Barrackpore a few months ago? What monetary damage did they do yesterday? I listened to your response off here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Colin, for your point.
Good point.
I have to say it's a fair point.
This is why you don't say those things, because they come back to bite you in the you-know-where, because you set that precedent. And then people don't like the precedent, so now you don't want to say it again.
Let me answer your questions for you. I am not the Minister of Works and Transport, and I don't want to fall so low, but I will simply say that the people yesterday were truly unpatriotic. They were protesting for a reason, but they knew exactly what they were doing wrong, which makes them very selfish. They didn't care about the rest of Trinidad if they said that Trinidad was going to have to pay. They didn't care about the rest of the nation. Not one bit. This is not the first time we've seen this, and it's probably not going to be the last. They were very much unpatriotic. In relation to the roads, I just said it before we break for the news. The only individual I didn't see yesterday was Ronson and telling us what was the estimated damage. I'm sure there was damage. What is the cost of burning all those tires in the landfill? Kemuel, 2 points that we've spoken about. The racism that we're seeing being hurled out there, as well as, well, I mean, I can't blame the caller from Siparia. He has a fair point.
I knew that this was coming and knew that it would come, even if it wasn't the first caller. Somebody would have mentioned, and we spoke about it before the news, the fact that when we saw protests in Barrackpore, as he mentioned, the Minister of Works and Transport was out there and he was able to give an estimated value, but in Port of Spain and in Silas and in Beetham, we see the same protest action and we don't get an estimated value from the minister. And it's not that we want an estimated value, but it's just a matter, as Sean said, you set a precedent of coming out and saying this and coming out and calling the people of that particular area unpatriotic. But when it's the same thing with the PNM constituency, it's a completely different, just silence, because we got nothing. We got silence.
So you see how he points out UNC and PNM constituencies. And if we analyze a trend, then I don't think people are wrong in their commentary stating that this only happens in UNC constituencies and this only happens in PNM constituencies.
I also think it's something to do with the fact that it's police killings and it's those types of protests.
Yes.
We have a trickle-down effect from North America. Whether we like it or not, it colors and it adjusts, it frames, it influences our culture. So to some extent, I could see where that also gave politicians pause.
But I'm very nervous for you seeing that whatever happens in the States trickles down here, because there's been a string of mass shootings since the beginning of 2022. Anyway, we have a call on the line with us from Port of Spain. Good
We
morning,
just had
caller.
one this weekend.
Another one.
Gentlemen.
Hello, good morning.
I would not want us to get into the Barrack Poor and what Rohan Sinanan said, and I am not going to read race into this thing. It's easy for us to go down that road, and I think you gentlemen have a responsibility to the Republic to discourage this issue about everything to be seen through the binoculars of race. If you have a binoculars and you try to look in the one eye, you don't see clearly. But if you put the binoculars to your eye and you look through both eyes, you get a much clearer vision at the end of the day. Let us see things, with clearer vision. In the context of the discussion before us this morning, to comment on the Minister of National Security's performance is wasting time. It is wasting time. There is no way in the world we will ever get anything meaningful or substantial from this Minister of National Security. May I also add, in the context of the police behavior, we are already halfway down the precipice. It cannot be that every time somebody shoot at the police will carry out the former commissioner's instructions, one shot, one kill. You all remember that?
Yes.
So I am not in any way surprised at the number of young men who are ending up dead at the bullets of police officers. I cannot figure out, because and I take this back to my own experiences in watching the movies. When you corner somebody, a bandit, where will the bandit run? Can we not shoot him in his legs, or are we taking a position that the prison have too many criminals already? The courts are taking too long. Nothing is being sorted out at the level of the court, and so on and so forth. These are matters I raise and I speak to time and again. Unless we get the judiciary fixed, unless we get the magistracy fixed, unless we get the police to understand their true calling in life is to protect and serve. Protecting also means protecting the bandits and protecting us against the bandits. We cannot kill every bandit in this country because we have been producing bandit farms in this country. I give you the stat over and over that in the last 2+ years, thousands of children have not gone to school between the ages of 14 and 16. How many of those children who are causing us grief now fall into that category? Let's be honest, Trinidad and Tobago is a long way from fixing itself. And unless we begin to have some systemic and critical thinking, we will not arrive at the conclusions that we need to arrive at. May I also say in closing, what is playing out before us in terms of national security and police activity by way of the number of police killings suggests to me that those who are reigning are unable to rule. They might be in office, like the Minister of National Security, but he cannot rule because that requires a package of skills that he is not blessed with.
Thank you very much, caller. Have a good day. There was a point you wanted to make?
Oh, well, there's several. One thing, though, please, the shooting in the leg, let's not necessarily go with that. I don't think that's not as practical as we think. But more importantly, use of force policy. There's a practical thing that we could debate, we could discuss, we could ask the Commissioner of Police to give us more details because he kind of just didn't really give a substantial answer when asked about it yesterday. The use of force policy, because this is not the first shooting of this nature. They intercept a vehicle that is alleged to be involved in crimes. There's a shootout commences and the suspect is shot. Now I get it. One time, fine. 2 times now, it's beginning to be a trend, and you start to have to take the questions more seriously. So, use of force policy, that is some place where we could start the discussion to try to improve this situation.
Also adding to that, Again, acting ASP Ashraf Ali did inform us that in relation to police training, he said it on the program, they are trained to shoot from the neck down. So anywhere from the neck down, they're actually right. They're actually trained to aim at that. Kemgil.
Yeah, sure. I was actually about to make the same point that you made. They are trained to shoot at body mass, as he mentioned. But on the performance of the Minister of National Security, I think it leaves a lot to be desired and a lot to be wanted. And to me, even from a policing standpoint, there is not a whole lot that is required, But I feel like he just lacks the brain space to actually do things. And he has already put himself in that space of, well, it's not my job to police. It's not my job to go there and arrest. So that's up to the police. And that's what we get all the time. And we have constantly gotten that from this government. It is the job of the police. Even when the opposition would bring a motion up to the parliament in relation to crime and the impact of crime or whatever is the case, that's generally sense that we get from them. They say we've passed this and we've passed that, but it's not our job.
Kemgil, you said it best as far as I'm concerned. I'm running out of words to describe the situation and the Minister of National Security. Caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I just had a comment on the situation yesterday.
Yes?
I think it was very disgusting behavior on the part of residents, and they should think carefully what they are doing. But I know that a lot of them is of the view that they have no other choice, but that is the only way they can get attention. But still, that is not the way to go. They have to understand that it kind of blockage and so on the road that causes so much inconveniences. And it is not clear to the innocent people who has nothing to do with this.
Exactly.
So I will appeal to them to try and use their best judgment. I know they have their grievances and they should try and do it in a different way. As for this, my good friend who just called from Port of Spain concerning the one shot, one kill, I don't agree with him there, but that's an opinion. The fact is that the last commissioner is not in office now. It's the one who is there. So that has to be, if that is the situation, it has to fall on him.
Yeah.
So I just called to make that comment, and thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think you're also right in suggesting that it now falls on the acting commissioner of police. Whether or not it was instructions laboured by the former commissioner of police, caller from Port of Spain understand that he is no longer in that position. So it's not his job, it's not his role or responsibility. Understand that the acting commissioner of police now has the power and authority to overrule that. So he has the power and authority to give police officers instructions. So maybe your continued stance against the former commissioner of police is not warranted because he's currently the interim political leader of a party, as I think you yourself said we should start referring to him as. So
I think also there's a bit of irony with the one shot, one kill policy, because I don't think it ever really worked out that way, particularly with handguns. That's just not how it goes. And from what I understand, if anything, there's questions with regards to the amount of shots fired at these suspects and if that was excessive, right? I don't have anything official about it, so I can't say for sure that is a question that I think we need answers for. But it is something that, again, potentially needs to be looked into. Because I think with both this situation and the one on Ryson Road, arguments could be made that in the moment, maybe the police were excessive. Maybe because it's a high-stress situation and it affected their judgment. It doesn't necessarily have to be malicious. However, the results might have been avoidable. So it's something to look at. But again, the genesis of it is what's being debated. Were they engaged in criminal activity or not? There's footage. We need to give the investigation time. I get it. But on the other hand, you have to give the people something as to what you were saying. Why wait till Monday at 5 to even mention footage?
Exactly. Well, we just have about 4 minutes left for this morning's program, so that's where we're going to start to conclude. Kemgil, my final response to this morning, not response, but question simply is, as much as we have these conversations, as much as we have this dialogue, and we hope that it brings about some level of critical thinking in those who are viewing, where do we go from here? Because it's just another day in Trinidad and Tobago. Nothing is different, nothing has changed. And yes, society is becoming more and more violent, but nothing is being done about it.
Sure. I would end by saying this. This protest action that we saw yesterday came just over 2 years after the protest action that we saw on June the 30th, 2020, during the height of the pandemic in Trinidad, when they had protested, and the protest even more intense than what we saw yesterday, the killing of these 3 men in Mover at the hands of the police. And again, we see a similar situation coming just over 2 years, and at that particular time when the Prime Minister did actually address the country after he took more than 48 hours after he came to address the country. He said he waited for the situation to die down. What we got from him is that here's what we're going to set up a committee to go out into the community of East Port of Spain and Beetham and Sealot and get an idea as to what are the issues on the ground. Because remember, when they came out and they protested yesterday, they didn't just come out and protest the issues of the 3 men. They came out and they protested more than that. Jobs, whatever else they were feeling, this was the opportunity to do it. And 2 years later, almost 2 years later, I should say, we are yet to hear from that community recovery team that was set up by the Prime Minister to undertake a study as to what are some of the issues that people in East Port of Spain and Beetham and Sealot are facing. So maybe we can get a sense of what that report said so that we can go forward, because yesterday's protest was just a precursor to things that are just built up within, in terms of within the residents.
Camille, you raise a very valuable point, but I think the overarching point is it's just another committee with a title and a supposed purpose that we never hear anything from, or we never know exactly what happened. And a very, very crucial point. Camille, thank you very much. Sean Michael Small, boy.
Well,
that's all, you know.
Here's the thing, because you all made the point, right? What does the government say when they ask about crime? Well, it's the police job. It's the police job. It's the police job. Hey, school violence. Hey, the police will handle that. Hey, something else pops up. The police will handle that. First of all, I even during the pandemic, so we're talking last year, I had a problem with the amount of responsibilities being put on the plate of the TTPS.
Yes.
That's the first thing. But second thing, when you go through and subvert a process for choosing the next police commissioner, because at the end of the day, the rules, the procedures to how to do it were not followed, right? You could debate if it was legal, if it was illegal. That doesn't matter. You did not follow the proper procedures as outlined by the law to do it. So it was subverted, right? And we don't even have the reason why it was subverted. We don't even have the potential, whatever was reported to the president, to have the list withdrawn. And I could say withdrawn as we have all said withdrawn, because that is the term used, I believe, by those involved. The list was withdrawn. So the independence of the TTPS is now in doubt, because the post of commissioner and the Police Service Commission, the independence of those two are within doubt. So you can't come now and say, well, it's their job, it's not our job. Hold up! You have interfered with them, so now it is your job. If you left the commissioner alone to think on his own independently, that would be different. But you interfered with his posting, so now it's your job.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, Camille Pascal, thank you very much once more. Good seeing you. Mr. Sean Michael Small, thank you very much. I'm Keaton Shaw, and telling you that, well, I ended the show yesterday by saying today's a good day to have a good day. And I'll never stop ending the show by saying that. I will continue to push that, because that is just a motto to live by, you know, not the sort of nonsense that we experienced yesterday. There is a point behind it, and we hope that the voices of the people are heard. But all those who participated yesterday, you really went about this the wrong way. There's no doubt about it. But that's where I will conclude. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching Talking Point. Thank you to all the callers for the contributions this morning. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.